Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about how do light beings shed their karmic experience or dissolve their karmic experience and, physical karma. It's very important to realize that the body is the product of karmic residue in consciousness. So when we deal with karmic experience, we think that when higher beings or higher souls incarnate into the physical body, they don't need to deal with the same karmic residue. And partially it can be so because their distortions might differ from an average person's distortions, average person at this point of cycle, day and age. So we think that, however, that if we have the body, then it's just about us. And this is a misconception, because this body is not just the byproduct of our personal distortions, but also the genetic distortions which are related to our parents, because we've borrowed their genetic material. This material has been shaped into what it is now through eons, through different cycles and accumulation, the process of accumulation of karmic information. And so it's crystallized into that genetic material that you borrowed as a soul. And say you're a light being or a highly evolved being, you will still need to spend a great deal of time refining your not only your subtle karmic residue and distortions as an individual collective consciousness, but primarily you'll need to spend a lot of time dealing with the karmic residue that has been accumulated as the information, as the genetic materials, the primary biochemistry. And you also have to realize spiritually what biochemistry is. All your biochemistry is affected by your connections, energetic connections to the collective, and that information that has links through which that information from the collective travels into your personal space of consciousness and how it affects it. So it is quite a serious question, and I would say it's a science that we've forgotten or know kinda in a very disjoined, dispersed way. And so we have a notion that when a light being incarnates, they should have some supernatural experiences, or most probably they might have glimpses of their natural being or their light essence, and yet they will need to navigate, and which is the most challenging for such highly evolved soul or a light being, to navigate through that experience, because they are locked up in that karmic vessel, which vibrates differently. So their task would be not only to uplift themselves, and I mean, on a soul level, they're already highly vibrant, but the point would be to align this highly evolved vibration with the genetic material in the vessel that they carry. And so they might need to spend so many years, decades sometimes, to refine that material. And once they've achieved that, that would be a sort of a sign of gratitude to that bloodline or bloodlines that borrowed, or not borrowed, from which it borrowed the genetic material. And so the bloodline will also benefit once that person reaches that alignment. And so this is a very important point to realize for many souls, because they think that if someone is highly evolved being, their life has to go smoothly. On the contrary, because there is such a frequency mismatch, many light beings who are truly light beings, which are, again, they're not so many, but some who were light beings, because they incarnated and borrowed that genetic material from certain bloodlines, even though those bloodlines might have had connection to that higher stream of consciousness, original soul, but they have degraded, got corrupt during the down cycle. So all that information would need to be faced, and resolved or dissolved. And so many light beings will be challenged by that darkness, distortions, corruption, limitations that have been accumulated by that bloodline. And so they will face much more darkness and so-called lower frequencies. You can call them demonic entities, but it's all just different frequencies. These frequencies are connected to different ideologies and belief systems within the collective. So these entities, these shadows of the collective, certain curses, karmic activity that took place, will need to be faced by this being who chose to incarnate in this day and age into the physical body. And the true healing of the bloodline is basically that their higher frequency of the soul will offer the healing to the genetic material, meaning to the physical body, the energetic body, and the collective cluster of consciousness, which is represented by their bloodlines, from who this person borrowed this genetic material. And so the true healing will happen when this light being recognizes the root, because their original frequency is beyond the lower frequencies, or they don't have that capacity. Maybe even they are not distorted to that degree within themselves, but because of the genetic material that is borrowed in the form of the body, they might experience some kind of distortion or limitation within themselves, at least from the beginning of their life. And they would need to observe the root of this distortion. And once they dive deep and see the actual, the first root from which all the corruption originated from the beginning of this cycle, the true healing will start happening. And with that healing, there will be a lot of karmic dissolution, purgation, but also realization and solutions. And these solutions will be in the form of spontaneous knowledge, high form of knowledge, or forms of knowledge, effortless realizations about human existence, creation within human realm, etc., etc. So, but it's so important to face the darkness, because the darkness is none other but the limitation of consciousness. And because of the accumulation of different limitations, we have dispersed and created the smaller, low energy capacity bodies with limited lifespan. And so, you see, but at the same time, the paradox is that we can't exist in the body unless we have that root of limitation. It's like the root stays in the soil, in the darkness, to make sure the plant is grounded and stable, right? So we are rooted in this reality by our own darkness. Darkness means different limited ideas of reality, different ideas that were shaped into beliefs, ideologies, concepts, etc. And so when we speak about the real spiritual work, it's not just about your human dramas that may take place at the start of your awakening process, and you realize, okay, I have my traumas, I have this and that. It's much deeper than that. It's the collective trauma. It's the collective limitations. It's the desire to experience creation and in an imbalanced state. So these are much deeper roots which we are to face. But on the other hand, all these limitations allow the physical body and this dimension to appear as our reality. So the light beings who incarnate for whatever purpose that they discover only after the process of refinement is kind of, it will take over eventually, but at first the purpose is actually not to deny darkness, but to face it so that you realize the essence of the cosmic cycles, soul cycles. And the soul cycles means there is a collective soul cluster, then there is dispersion when you're diving into the matter. And the matter itself appears grosser and grosser only because there is dispersion, limitation. Consciousness kind of divides into smaller fragments, and these fragments are aware only of their own, peripheral, so to speak, scope and or of awareness, and then they lose sight of a bigger picture. And that's how this whole process of diving into the lowest point of the cycle happens. So nothing is really good or bad, it's just the experience. But when you are in a limited state, in an ignorant state, in an evil state, it's all just one and the same thing. It's synonyms which describe our reality. It means that your actions are driven by limitations. Your existence is driven by limitations. So when the light being, which somewhat still retains certain higher awareness means the scope is wider. So there's still some deeper awareness, a wider awareness of existence beyond the physical body, at least to some degree. Sooner or later that will sprout out. The more refinement, or the more effectively, efficiently the soul manages with the refinement. Refinement means letting go, dissolution of certain corrupt patterns. The more it dives into its essence and experiences the natural being of the higher reality. But at the same time, still being aware of the collective human corruption, even if it doesn't touch them directly. And so it depends on, again, there are also subtler distortions. They'll either choose to live here for some time, maybe sharing their experiences or exploring this dimension further. And very often these beings, after fulfillment, may simply dissolve the body into higher frequency, so that energy, basically, even if they appear physical, there is no actual residue that, would keep them kind of on the physical dimension for long, because their body is just very vibrant, the presence is very potent, but they exist on a different dimension than, because once the gross karmic residue is dissolved, their body will transform and they will have different vibration and frequency. With time, they'll be more and more absorbed into a different subtler frequency. So because their subtler body, light body, will take over, but they will still have capacity to exist on the physical level, or appear, at least physical solid, at least appear for some time. So, and in order to completely uproot oneself from the matrix, we cannot completely uproot ourselves from the matrix without looking at this fundamental root, what brought our collective consciousness into the dispersion. And so once you're able to pull it out, unplug it from this common soil, let's say the matrix, that we feed usually through the mode of projection, you become autonomous being, or your frequency allows you to see higher forms of creation, a part of which you become naturally. So the process of evolution is such that you can't really fool anyone. You can only know yourself through your own work and realization. That doesn't need to be announced to anyone. It's your own process. And sometimes people say, I've done so much, I've purged so much. Don't count years, because your soul doesn't live within the same dimension and timeline. Your soul, depending on its awareness level and overall, spiritual kind of ranking, and ranking is defined by where it came originally, that space of consciousness, that cluster. So it knows its own time, it has its own cycles, and it can only dissolve certain patterns with a certain pace of time, or meaning, speaking with using earthly terms, you can't push it. It knows itself, what is within it and what access it has to the collective. It has to work on dissolving those links with the darker areas within the collective. But before it dissolves, it has to dive into it. It has to have that capacity and strength not to tangle with the darkness, because this is another risk that most of the people are not aware of, that when you dive into the darkness and ignorance, when you face it, you might as well get tangled and have certain misconceptions about reality. You might get veiled and have kind of no capacity of your own to escape. But if you are connected with certain higher aspects of reality within the soul, sooner or later you'll find a way, or that higher cluster of consciousness will maybe interfere and help you to come out. And the darkness means that you need a certain experience of how creation operates on lower frequencies in order for you to relate, in order for you as a light being, as a higher soul, to be able to relate to human experience. Say you come from a completely different frequency and you don't know of corruption, anger, envy, jealousy, and all this. So by diving into that dimension or several dimensions of lower frequencies, you can realize so much about human experience. You can understand how creation operates on different lower frequencies too. And you learn to create, you learn to cultivate that equanimity despite the differences of frequency within your own soul and the experiences that you're thrown into. And so people look at spiritual life of different people superficially. They look, judge, they look at forms, they compare. As long as you see yourself as a being only, as a, lump of this body, and you do not have deeper perceptions, and you cannot connect these perceptions with awareness in a coherent, understanding, you're lost. You're a lost soul. And this is the majority. The majority of souls incarnated at this point of time are very limited. They have no capacity. They are so dispersed that their light essence is completely wasted to the projection. So such beings have no energetic capacity to bring themselves up again, even if originally they were from the relatively higher dimensions. But of course, most of the people who are now here are not of higher dimensions. And so if light beings incarnate here, it may feel extremely uncomfortable, very disturbing, very astonishing to which degree the degradation happened, and how certain people can even generate certain patterns, thought patterns, emotional patterns, how this all can even exist. So many light beings chose not to incarnate in this time. But those who did choose to incarnate, which have been very, very few for the past 7,000-10,000 years, they took a real hardship on themselves because the adjustment of frequency is difficult. Facing suffering, even if you are not suffering yourself, facing what's happening, that level of bestiality and degradation can be, you know, just sad to watch. But highly evolved beings, they don't have, similar to humans or lower human consciousness present at the moment on Earth, emotions or thought patterns. They, even if they borrowed the genetic material, they very clearly realize these patterns, and they may dissolve them very fast, but they still have to face these patterns through other people, reflect them, etc., etc. So that's why different light beings, Siddha beings, highly evolved beings who were in past eras warned about this time, and they didn't choose to incarnate. But when a light being incarnates here, and if they manage to come out and come out of the darkness and refine the genetic material successfully, their spiritual ranking is unmatched to anyone who exists on this earth. So they will be very potent in their spiritual essence. And so some light beings take this risk, choose this type of incarnation, and they face a lot of challenges and darkness of the collective in order to be able to somehow assist this collective effortlessly behind the scene. It's also very important to realize that light beings assist the humanity behind the scenes. They don't really, real light beings don't have this desire to interfere so much. They can, you know, on a smaller scale, create an impact, but their presence alone has proven to create that powerful, very energetically potent vortex, which heals, which transforms, that, you know, awakens people's awareness. So they don't need even to interact directly with anyone, because their just presence creates this powerful phenomenon of paving the path to ascension for those souls that still haven't lost their light essence to the matter and the antimatter and darkness overall. So, and those souls are the minority, and that's why if a light being incarnates, their scope of activity will usually be limited. Those usually who become, you know, very widely spread and famous, those are not the operants of light. They are the operants of darkness, because they match the frequency of the majority, which is very, very low, even in the name of spirituality, because what they propagate is limited ideas against some sort of new or whatever ideologies, but they're limited, and their presence is impotent, or they are surrounded by darker forces that are predominant in this day and age. And darker forces doesn't mean that they don't have or cannot produce some energetic phenomenon. And that's what the majority of ignorant people don't understand. You're looking for spirituality, but most probably what you're looking for is demonic spirituality. Means you're looking for energy kicks, for some kind of energy rushes. You don't realize that spiritual evolution is much beyond that. It has nothing to do with what you do or don't do, how Puritan you are, or how you act, or what you say to other people or don't say. All this external attire is the sign of demonic spirituality, because light beings, they are completely unbound. In their essence, they're totally unbound, even while being incarnate in the body. They always feel that They always know that. And their physical body, even though may pose some sort of a challenge at the start of their life, but they are so much beyond this limitation. And so if they have that capacity, wisdom, humility, and higher intelligence, and devotion to this process as well, they can come out of whatever darkness, whatever impositions, whatever attacks, because they realize that whatever resists them, it is the collective darkness that they have to face within themselves, so that they realize the whole process of creation of that dimension of darkness, or those limitations. So eventually they come up to the surface and become masters. So the darkness cannot touch them anymore, simply because that frequency of darkness remains below their average frequency of being. And so and again, the light being doesn't need to be chosen or validated or acknowledged by other people, because they're so deeply rooted within themselves that they know who they are. So they don't need anyone's, acknowledgement. They're here for the purpose of selfless being. And so selfless being means the being that doesn't need to be, put on a pedestal or acknowledged anyhow, or even registered. Their existence just is important as it is. For example, you don't acknowledge the existence of the sun or of other planets on a daily basis, or you don't acknowledge the existence of the sky. It is just there, it's given. The same applies to the higher frequency and those who come on this earth from that realm of higher frequency. They are so collective in their perception of reality that they do not care about being acknowledged on an individual level or approved by limited human souls. And so it's just something that it's important to have in perspective for those souls who perceive that they are at the beginning of this journey, and they are still confused, they're still facing darkness, and they have these moments of I can't make it, or they have these moments of being attacked and challenged in the physical level, not being able to completely align yet. So for this kind of souls, this information is but vital, and they definitely, after hearing that, will be empowered from within to continue their journey, so that they can overcome whatever is chosen to be overcome, and whatever has been placed in front of them, whatever they have to face within themselves genetically, it all will be brought into their awareness, and they will regain that power to face it again and again, to dissolve it. And this time it will really work, because if you came across this information, it means your soul needed this information. If you resonate with it, absorb it. Don't absorb it just on the level of words, absorb it on the level of transmission, because this is something that your soul has been always longing for. It has been looking for. It has needed that boost, that reminder from its higher self to reconnect and to gain more courage to face whatever is there to face. Thank you very much for your attention. May all the souls who listen to this realize the high frequency within them, align with it, be blessed and protected by it, and develop courage, selflessness, realization of existence beyond the physical body. The physical body is illusory. It fools you. Don't look whether, someone's earring is on the left or on the right, or someone's nose pin is on the left or on the right. Look beyond the face, beyond the appearance. Because if you're stuck in your own physical dimension, you're not ripe or mature to really dive into spiritual spheres and matters. That radiation will destroy you, dissolve you, shatter all your illusion to the point where you will scream like a crazy cook. So beware of that too. Do not force anything prematurely. Listen to the voice of your soul. If you have fear, well, face it, because sometimes it is a precaution. It's your own soul tells you, don't go there. It's not your time. When you have courage, then approach. High dimension is not something you've ever experienced on this earth. It's brutal for your earthly notions of reality. The truth is such a potent vibration. It's like laser. It cuts. It's such a powerful radiation that it destroys any falsehood, any impotence, spiritual impotence. It just shines light on it. So don't fool yourself. If you're not ready for any truth, abstain from judgment, abstain from diving deeper into your darkness and ignorance with that kind of an impotent mind and lack of awareness. To dive into the darkness means to be awakened first to the high existence, to have that higher awareness with which you can look at the darkness as if from above. If you don't have that heightened awareness and perspective, you can muddle in the darkness and be probably consumed, bogged down, absorbed by the darkness. And that's what happens to 99% of people who are playing spirituality. So beware of that. Be pure, because your purity of the soul will open the path to the high existence. And the path of high existence is very simple, but you have to open to that simplicity so that your soul can match the frequency of the high existence. Then you'll be pulled out of the darkness. Effortlessly, you will see everything is aligning. But as long as there is so much resistance, look within and learn to let go. Let go of what you're holding on to, whatever you consider as the most important. Those are limitations. They keep you in the darkness, and eventually you get absorbed. People fool themselves that they're doing some spiritual practice, that they will be, saved or this or that. No, all these notions of reality are darkness. Even in the name of spirituality, that's the most dangerous darkness. It pulls you in. Many people think they're on the righteous path, but they're actually serving darkness, hoping for salvation or afterlife. At the end of the day, they all will be consumed by the darkness of their own soul, because the darkness predominates at the end of this cycle. And the end of this cycle is just here. So we'll see what we are to see. Blessings to everyone. Thank you.